It's time for our In the Turn interview, sponsored by Distinctive Auto Body, located at 203 Bedford Street in Whitman, doing all your auto body needs. He made his Major League stock car debut at the age of 18, and he won his very first race. He entered the 1979 Daytona ARCA 200, becoming the youngest driver to win a Major League stock car race. He made his Cup Series debut that same year in the number 42 for Petty Enterprises, and he'd go on to run 829 races, winning 8 in his career that spanned 30 years. This gentleman comes from racing royalty, grandson of Lee Petty, son of 7-time Cup Series champion Richard Petty, father of Adam Petty, racer, singer, broadcaster, and now author. Kyle Petty, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great, man. The intro is longer than the interview. Let me just say that. I don't have that much to say after that. You said it all, dude. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So let's jump right into things. The first question we ask every guest on the show, in your own words, who is Kyle Petty?
Okay, so if you follow me on Twitter or you follow me on Instagram, I think in my bio it says who I am, just Kyle. That's it. I'm just a guy, man. I just got fortunate and was born into a family where I could race and do the things I wanted to do, and just one of those guys that just floated through life, man, still floating. So that's it. That's it. Not anything special, not anything extraordinary, just a regular guy who got to do some special stuff.
Awesome. That is really, really cool. Let's talk about the latest project, Swerve or Die, Life at My Speed in the first family of NASCAR racing. And, of course, the book was written by Ellis Hennigan, the New York Times best-selling co-author of The Blink of an Eye. Tell us a little bit about what put this project into motion, Kyle.
You know what? Honestly, and just like everybody else that you talk to during the last 3 or 4 years, whether they have written a book or new music or, painted the Sistine Chapel. It's the pandemic, man. The world shut down and so many people just had nothing to do. You just were looking for something to do. And I got up and got up with Ellis, and we just kept going back and forth during a year and a half or 2 years. And, it's one of those things I would have never taken the time to stop my life and focus solely on a book for that long a period of time. But because of the pandemic, was able to sit and think and go back through photos and go back through memories and go back through things that I have that reminded me of some of those stories and go back through Adam's stuff. So it gave us an opportunity and gave me an opportunity to probably do it the right way. It probably would have been done the wrong way any other time, but the pandemic really, that 18 months or 2 years really gave me an opportunity to do some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the pandemic. I mean, I think a lot of us really got to focus on things that got put aside, because of everyday life. But the story itself is broken up into 4 parts. Dreamer, Driver, Dad, and the Road Ahead. I'm about halfway through the driver portion of the book, as I've actually got it right in front of me. But let's kind of go step by step here. The first part, Dreamer. Tell us, for the listener, give us a quick little synopsis of the Dreamer portion of the book.
I wrote it. I didn't read it. So you're supposed to be refreshing my memories. I think it's broken down into the Dreamer part is the part of growing up. And wanting to be a race car driver and being around my dad and doing the things with him and traveling with him and riding motorcycles and doing the things all kids do. Your dreams are trapped in an 8-year-old body. Your dreams are trapped in a 16-year-old body. But, when you dream at night, you're not that 8-year-old kid. You're not that 16-year-old kid. You're racing Richard Petty and David Pearson and Dale Earnhardt Sr. and, you're doing that kind of stuff. So I think that's where the Dreamer part comes in. For this book. The driver part obviously chronicles some of my driving part, and some of the things that I went through and some of the races and some of that stuff. And it's probably as much about the racing as I really get into in it. And then we go to obviously the dad part, which is about Adam and about his journey into being a race car driver, and then The road ahead was just a look at NASCAR and where the sport is going. And I think we see so many changes in the sport right now that that was antiquated news before it was printed, because the sport's moving so fast right now. But the dreamer part, if we go back to that, is just about being a kid.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that was quite the cool portion of it. Really, to understand where you came from down in Randleman, North Carolina, and growing up, such a simpler time. I really, really enjoyed that first portion of the book. And, you said you wrote it, but you didn't read it. I'd say you got an A on the book report right there for that first portion of it.
Good. That would be the only A I've ever received for a book report. I can tell you that right now. I called my 8th grade English teacher when this book came out, and I said, "Hey, you remember how I flunked English all through the 7th and 8th grade?" I said, "Would you have ever believed I would have been a part of writing a book?" And the guy called me back, and he said, "There is no way you were any part of writing a book." He said, "I can send your papers in to show people you know nothing about the English language." And he is correct in that, I will say.
Oh, that's great. So what emotions came to the forefront as you put these stories to paper?
You know what? That's a good question. I think you relive a lot of it. When my Uncle Randy was killed at Talladega when I was 14 years old, and that ride home and having to come in and talk to my mom, and knowing that my dad had to go back to talk to my mom. And I think those emotions, listen, man, you can bring those joyous emotions up anytime you want to, but you always suppress those sad ones. And I told somebody not long ago, talking about this same thing almost. It was like a lot of this stuff when it happened, you're like anybody. You just put it in a box and you walk down a hallway and you put it in the attic up in your head and in your heart, and you don't go back to it. It's just stored there. So to write this and to write a book, you had to go back and get it out and dig it out to make sure you got it right. And when you dug it out, man, it was just like it happened yesterday, especially the stuff with Randy, the stuff with Adam, reliving that and going back through that. It was very emotional. It was very emotional. I did the audio book, so I did read the book, and had to read it, and it took us forever to get through the audio book, just because there would be days that we would start and we'd start down a passage, and I didn't want to go down that path that day. And it would take me a couple of days to come to terms with it, to be able to read it out loud. Even though it was written, to read it out loud and to hear the words played back was a lot tougher than I anticipated.
Yeah, totally understandable when those emotions hit. In the book, you tell a story about a rain delay in Daytona and how a few of you from the network go skydiving. Tell us a little bit about it, and are there plans in motion to do it again?
Listen, I'd do it right now if I could get somebody to go with me. That's one of those things, that's the way my whole life's been. If somebody said, let's go do this, I'm like, yeah, let's go. If we have to plan it, it can't be as fun as if you just say, let's go do it. And we were just sitting in the infield. It had rained. It was going to take 2 or 3 hours to drive the racetrack. Skydived to land. It was right over in DeLand, Florida, about 15 minutes from the track. And we said, as it was clearing, it's like, let's just go skydiving. And Jeff Binke, who was my boss at Turner at the time, he said, yeah, I've always wanted to do it too. So we rolled over. Rutledge wouldn't do it. He got over with us, Rutledge Wood, my friend. But he got over there, but he stayed on the ground and filmed everything. So it was pretty crazy. But listen, I'm sure I'm not the only person in the world who just one day woke up and said, let's go jump out of a plane, and went and did it. But it was crazy, man, because we had done interviews all morning. We went and skydived, jumped out of a plane, came back, and we were back. I swear, we were back in like an hour and a half. We just rolled out of the plane, landed on the ground, jumped back in a car, and drove back. It was pretty crazy. So,
as a '90s kid, as they say, one thing that wasn't mentioned, but I still think it's kind of a good story, was your time driving the WCW NWO car, and your time on WCW television. Any memories from that era that come to mind?
You know what? And this is true, and I could have written forever about that part of it, just from the standpoint that the only reason I drove that car was because I had a deal. We ended up, that was a Turner deal. WCW was Turner Broadcasting. And I had that side deal going with Turner, and that money was just a pass-through from me to fund the car that Adam drove. When Adam started running a late model car locally, it was sponsored by the NWO. So I drove their Xfinity car, Bush car at the time, and was on their TV shows and hung out with Hulk and Nash and the Giant, all those guys, man. And they were just great individuals, just really nice people. And my whole experience with the NWO and the WCW, the whole thing, couldn't have been any better, man. It was just, they were great people. We'd go and hang out backstage. They'd go out and wrestle. They'd come back. We'd talk about racing. We'd talk about wrestling. We talked about a little bit of everything. We flew places together. So it was a fun time.
Very cool. So switching gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the racing career. 8 career Cup wins, the first coming at the 1986 Miller High Life 400 at Richmond for the Wood brothers. What do you remember from that win, and what's some special memories from those 8 career wins that still stick with you today?
It's crazy, man. I don't know. And from the first one, it was just winning for the Wood brothers, because we had our family and the Wood brothers. We'd just been rivals forever. Tremendous amount of respect for each other. But it was, Petty Enterprises and Richard Petty against the Wood brothers at Ford and David Pearson, and that's the rivalry that everybody points at in this sport. Just about, if you go back in time, and there I was, a Petty driving for the Woods. So it was that in itself was just so strange to be there. But then to win a race for him was just, for me, it was a validation that I could drive a race car. And that I could win some races if I beat at it long enough and hung at it long enough. And, that was special. Then I went to drive for Felix, and we won at Rockingham 3 or 4 times. Man, we killed him at Rockingham. We just got on a streak there. With the NASCAR didn't change the rules. We had the same car, the same tire, the same engine combination, the same stuff for 3 or 4 years in a row. Nothing changed. As long as nothing changed, man, I could beat you at Rockingham. That's the way it was. So, I think winning so many races down there, 2 or 3 in a row, and 3 out of 4 or something like that. I mean, that was pretty cool. Winning at Watkins Glen, winning at Pocono, those places. There's moments in those races that I remember racing with Davey. I remember racing with Earnhardt or Ernie Irvin or people like that. That they're special when I look back on them. But I tell people all the time, my greatest moments in racing was helping my dad win the Daytona 500 in '79 and watching Adam win his ARCA race in '98. Those will always be my two most special moments in the sport. Is helping my dad being a part of building the car that my dad won with, and being a part of building the car that my son won with.
Very cool. You mentioned Rockingham. Just a quick pivot here. Tracks like Rockingham and North Wilkesboro coming back to the circuit here. What does that mean for the sport?
I don't know. I think that's yet to be seen. They left the sport, or they didn't leave the sport on their own. They got kicked out of the sport because they were considered too small for where the sport was headed. They didn't draw the amount of people. They weren't Chicago. They weren't Dallas. It was Rockingham, North Carolina. It was North Wilkesboro. These tracks were out in the middle of the country. They'd seat 35,000, 40,000 people. That was about it on a good day. So I think when you looked at it, they got removed from the circuit because they weren't relevant. So it's strange to me, and it's odd when you look at the sport that 35 years later, all of a sudden it's all the rage. Let's go back to these places. And I think TV has a huge part of that, because now TV doesn't care if there's 35,000 people in the grandstands or if there's 150,000 people in the grandstands. All TV cares about is who turns it on and how many people watch it at home. And when you can get 2 or 3 million people to watch it from home, it doesn't make any difference. North Wilkesboro is relevant again, and Rockingham is relevant. I think the best part about those two places, and the best part about Wilkesboro and those places coming back, is the history that they have of the sport. The greats like Darrell Waltrip and Kel Yarborough and Dale Earnhardt Sr. and those guys won on those racetracks. And these guys today, never had an opportunity to race on those racetracks. So to be able to have these guys come back and race on these racetracks, I think that's big for the sport, to be able to bring these young drivers back to the places that some of the greatest drivers ever won on.
Excellent. Beyond racing, you've accomplished quite a lot. Let's touch quickly a little bit about the Victory Junction Camp and the Kyle Petty Charity Ride Across America. What do those two efforts mean to you as a person, and what does it mean that, you know, Adam's legacy has continued on through really both?
Yeah, you know, so the charity ride, you know, we started it just because, in all honesty, because Harry Gant and myself wanted to ride motorcycles from California to North Carolina. So I have to blame Harry Gant a little bit for this. But we started it, you know, and we had such a fun time that first year, and we did it for some local charities, and then things changed around, and we got some sponsorship, and the next thing you know, we were giving away some substantial money, and we did it for 4 or 5 years, and then Adam's accident happened. And when Adam's accident happened, I think it changed the charity ride. I think the charity ride took on a purpose. We're going to build a camp. We're going to build a camp in Adam's memory, and this charity ride is going to be a part of it. And it has just flourished and taken off. I think we're in our 28th year. We've raised over $20 million and given it away to different charities all across the country, but the majority of it since 2000 has gone straight to building Victory Junction and sending kids to camp. And I think camp speaks for itself. When you look at the amount of children that have come through there, it's not, you know, it's built, and it was built in Adam's memory, but it's not a petty camp. It's not Adam's camp. It's the race fans' camp. It's NASCAR's camp. It's any kid that comes there. It is their camp. And that's the cool part. That is the cool part, to see how these kids react when they come to camp, to see their faces, to watch these kids, to watch a kid in a wheelchair, strap himself in and do a zip line with his wheelchair connected to him. It's phenomenal, man. It's phenomenal. It's stuff that all the races in the world and all the trophies in the world, I don't think they ever give you that much joy, is to see the smile on a kid's face when they get to do something for the first time and get to do something they never imagined that physically or emotionally they'd ever be able to do. So, the charity ride, we're going to continue that until we turn it from motorcycles back to cars, and I just drive across country when I'm 90 years old. I'll be doing that forever, it seems like. But the camp, we pray and hope that it'll be here forever. We have so many supporters and so many great families and so many great people that have been a part of it that, those two things far, far transcend what motorsports is and what anything that any of us do on a racetrack. Excellent.
I'm sure when you were a kid, if somebody told you you'd be singing at the Grand Ole Opry, you'd say you're kidding. What does music mean to you, and how has it impacted you as a person?
You know what? So music came about through racing also. I was 10, 11, 12 years old. Marty Robbins, the country singer, and he drove a race car. He'd run Daytona, run Talladega, run Charlotte, Atlanta, some of the bigger racetracks. And he would sit by the pool and play guitar. Late 60s, early 70s, I'd seen people on TV play a guitar, but I'd never seen anybody in person play a guitar. And Marty Robbins, as soon as I saw him pick that thing up and start playing, I'm like, I'm going to do that someday. I'm going to play a guitar. Started taking lessons when I was 12. Never thought I would play the Grand Ole Opry. Never thought I would play in anybody. I was content to play in my bedroom. Believe me, I was content to just sit and play the thing. But I think music has been important, and a lot more important maybe for me, through some of the things that have happened, and especially Adam. I mean, there's nothing that gets you through the dark days like picking up a guitar and just sitting in a room and just playing all by yourself, because you can talk to that guitar and it tells you everything is going to be okay, and it answers all the right questions, and it answers them all the right ways. And it's the best friend you ever had. So I think music for me has been important through the good times, but it's been critical and just always been there through the bad times. So I can't imagine my life without a race car and without a guitar.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned Adam, obviously. You've got Morgan and the 3 boys now. It started all over again, Kyle. Tell us a little bit about the family nowadays. How's everybody doing?
Everybody is grand. Yes, I tell you, most people look at me and figure I live my life pretty much backwards as it is. Started driving a race car when I was 18. Most people didn't start until they were later in life. So, and here I am, 62, still having kids, and I've got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old. Devan, our youngest, is 6 months, and it's phenomenal. I am telling you, I realize, and I realize now that even with Adam and Austin Montgomery, my children, I never. You're busting your butt when you're young, man. You're doing everything you can to get ahead, to make money, to establish yourself in a sport or in the business that you're in. And the one thing that you don't have enough of is time. And now you get to this place in life, and you got plenty of time, man. And it has been a joy to be with these kids and to be with Morgan and to be able to spend so much time with them and to watch them grow, to watch them go from 3 to 4, to watch them and be at home when they walk for the first time or when they talk for the first time. That stuff I missed the first go round. So my life is in a great, great place. Morgan is tremendous, just a tremendous person, and she makes me better. And that's all I can ask for out of life. And these kids, someday I just hope they remember that I was a decent father, and that's all I really care about.
Excellent. Now, as we take the white flag here on this interview, if people want to, for the casual race fan, why should they pick up this book?
You know what? First, it's a quick read, okay? If you want to say you read one book all year long, read Swerve or Die, man. You'll blast through it. And I think Ellis and I, as we wrote it, it's just small stories. So you read a story, and it's that kind of book where you read one story and you want to know what happened next, and you read the next story and you want to know what happened next. And and the title, because of the music, and every song has to have a hook that gets you interested in it. That's why, as we talked about the title, that's why we came up with the title. Because who would have thought a race car driver would have written anything with the title Swerve or Die? And the point is, you've got to be able to change. You've got to be able to change direction. You've got to be able to change how you think about things and where you are just to survive sometimes. You can't just stop when you get to a roadblock. You've got to go around that roadblock or over that roadblock or under it. And, there were times in my life when Randy was killed and when Adam was killed, when my mom passed away, and there were times when I was fired from driving race cars where you could have just crawled up in a fetal position and said, okay, that's it. I'm not going any farther. But I was very blessed that I had that instilled in me to just keep digging. The race is not over until they throw a checkered flag, man. And there's always another race, another week, another race. That's the way it works. And so I grew up that way, and that's kind of the way the book is. So if you're interested in just following somebody who just kept going, and get little tidbits out of it, there's a few life lessons in it. I won't say it's about life lessons, and that's not what it was written for. It was written just to entertain, and I hope it does that.
Absolutely. It's actually sitting in my hand as we speak right now. I got an autographed copy from the museum, signed by both you and your father, and I'm picking my way through it. It's probably the one book that I am reading and have read in the last 5-10 years, so certainly a good pick at it, about halfway through it, Kyle, and it's just a fantastic read. So the one final question I've got for you, and we'll let you go, we ask this of all of our guests here on the show. When it's all said and done and your time is up here, how do you, Kyle Petty, want to be remembered to the racing fans?
You know what? And I think from a race perspective and race fans, I would hope that some race fans are going to remember me as that kid that hung out with my dad and all those guys. And some race fans are going to remember me as that guy that drove a race car. And some race fans are going to remember me as that guy that makes everybody mad on TV because he just speaks his mind and says whatever he wants to say. And that's the way I am. But I hope that however you remember me, however a race fan remembers me at whatever stage of my life, that they look at that guy, they look at me, and they say, you know what? I would have had a good time having a beer with that guy at some point in time. We could have had a good conversation, and that's all I need. That's all I need to be remembered by is just he was a pretty decent guy.
Excellent. And I can tell you that the blue shirts from the NASCAR cruise from a couple of years ago did check in, and they wanted me to make sure I said hello to you. So passing that message along.
Great group of people, man. Tell them I said hello.
Certainly will. Kyle Petty joining us here on Miles on Motorsports featuring Nascar, Massachusetts. Great conversation. Appreciate the time, Kyle. And we will talk to you down the road. Hope to see you at the track this summer.
Yeah, man, catch up with me. When you see me, tap me on the shoulder and tell me you used that book for a door stop, or it started a fire for you whenever you were cold or something, but that you put it to good use. All right, man?
Excellent. Appreciate the time. Kyle Petty here on the show. And let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Distinctive Auto Body, located at 203 Bedford Street in Whitman, working with most insurance companies, 781-447-0721. Family-owned and operated Adria Restaurant Banquet Facility, located at 436 Oak Street in East Bridgewater. Bladar and crew do a heck of a job. One of our favorite places to hang out after the show. My insurance company, Hanson Insurance, located on County Road in Hanson, 781-293-6376. Life, auto, home and business insurance. Stephanie and crew will take care of you over there. And, of course, if you would like to advertise with us on the show, shoot us a message on Facebook, Miles on Motorsports. If you search that, you'll find our page where, if you know me, you know I'm on Facebook, you have my phone number, any of that, give me a call or shoot me a message. We would love to have you join the show as one of our sponsors. We're going to put a bow on this show here, coming back after the break. More of Miles on Motorsports featuring Nascar, Massachusetts, right here on 95.9 WATD. 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 WATD.